Go to Joe 303.
Tomorrow's Superstars Tuesday.
Is that the stable genius saying that?
30330. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And
This is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
We choose truth over facts.
We'll see who's sleepy.
I'm not going nuts. 30330.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
All men and women created by the you know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
I got started out of HBCU. No overstate.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
30330.
Around the nation, PYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a show for you guys today. It's going to be full of salt. I'm very salty today. So, look, I don't know if you guys have blood pressure issues. If you do, you may not want to watch today. A lot of things are frustrating today. I'm a bit frustrated. I'm a bit flustered. So we're going to have a show. We got idiots. We got people running around hurting people for asking them to put on a mask. That's awful. We do have some good news, though, about insider trading. We got Richard Burr seemingly in a little bit of trouble. We have bad news when it comes to domestic spying. I'm actually going to go off a little bit on Bernie Sanders. Surprising. But hey, no politician is above reproach. And I think this is a valid criticism. We also have the Bernie Biden task force. So, what do I think about the task force? Okay. We'll get into it. Like I said, pretty salty. Oh boy. So we got a lot of stuff to go through, a lot of information here. But we also have some breaking news about Senator Burr. It appears that he has stepped down as chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. So he's facing a federal probe, of course, on insider trading. We'll get into that story in a few minutes here. But that's the newest development here. I wonder when they're going to throw Kelly Loeffler in jail. Prison. But you know what? I'll get into it. So we got stories. But please, before we get into it, I'd like you to like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps out the show as always. And there's a lot of ways a lot of different ways to listen to the show now. For those of you who might miss the live streams or occasionally can find the live streams and you actually want to go and listen to it in a podcast form, well, we got Spreaker. We're on iTunes. That's Around the Nation with Jeff Waldorf on iTunes. So, and then, of course, there's a weekend show. Here's the Thing. That's also on iTunes. You can find those also both up on Spreaker. So, hey, there are links to those. I tweet those out whenever there's a new episode. You can go and download that. You can also become a patron and download it with no breaks or no ads. So that's fun as well. So there's all that stuff. Like I said, many different ways to listen to the show, to get the show. And I'm glad to be able to provide that stuff to you guys. That's, where a lot of that patron stuff goes to. Because it turns out like getting, podcast hosting space and all that, it's expensive. And so I'm like, Jesus Christ, it costs that much every month just to host a podcast. Turns out, yep, kind of expensive. All right. Anyway, that's again, that's where your donations go to help the show, to help me be able to offer that and to do that for you guys, and to do those extra shows like on the weekend. Like actually, this weekend we've got Humanist Report, Mike Figueredo. So we're gonna have a great discussion. I'm pretty sure we're gonna talk about the Biden Bernie unity stuff. And you can probably guess where that conversation is going to go. It'll be full of lots of fire. So that drops on Saturday for the patrons only. Drops on Sunday for everybody else. So sign up, be a patron, get access to that early every time we do the weekend show. Okay. That said, let's dive into it. Another instance of violence related to the CDC guidelines on masks has been reported, this time in Indiana. On Wednesday, a man in his early to mid-20s went to a 7-Eleven in Mishawaka, Indiana. Now, he wasn't wearing a mask and was asked to leave, so that, unless, of course, he put one on. Now, the store has signs. It's clear. Like, the store has signage everywhere. Like, you must wear a mask to enter. You know, kind of like the signs where it's no shirt, no shoes, no service. Same thing, right? No mask, no service. And so they're required to wear a face mask in order to get in there. But this person decided to ignore all the signage. And then when asked to go put on a mask, resorted to physically assaulting an essential worker. Now, this is according to WNDU. When the man tried to buy a cup of coffee, the worker told him she couldn't serve him because he wasn't wearing a mask. So she was following orders. She was saying, hey, look, I'd love to, sell you a cup of coffee, but you got to have a mask on. Or else, that you're in violation of CDC guidelines. And not only that, but on store policy, right? That's when the man apparently got mad, threw a fit, and threw a literal cup of coffee on the worker and left the store in a huff. Now, that's not all. You think that's like bad enough, like getting hot coffee thrown at you. No. And by the way, she's an essential worker. She's somebody who has to be there. And for all I know, doesn't get any sort of incentives or hazard pay, right? This is somebody who has to go out and work and potentially, expose herself to this virus, right? And endanger herself and her family in order to make a paycheck, because she can't get unemployment. No, the gas stations are open. They're essential businesses, and understandably so, because, the truck drivers, they need gas. People who are essential need gas to be able to go to work and all that stuff. But so she has to work in this. And yet, for doing so, and for just, saying, hey, you're a customer, we'd like you to follow the rules here. And right now, company policy says any guests have to wear a mask in order to curb the transmission of coronavirus. This guy is like, no, throws a fit, throws a literal cup of coffee, but that's not all. Later on, he returned. And when the worker asked him to leave because literally he threw a cup of hot coffee on her, the man decided to physically assault her, punching her, causing her to fall to the ground. And then, according to police, he continued to punch and kick her before leaving the 7-Eleven. All of that over a mask. Police are now looking for this guy for assault, right? But understand, like, this was somebody, like, he flipped out, not just, at the moment where he got mad. No, this was enough to anger him to the point where he comes back later to go and assault her. This is complete and utter insanity. All for asking someone to do something as simple as wearing a face covering. And it doesn't have to be like a medical mask or anything like that. It could be a bandana, right? Whatever. If it's a face covering, that's what's required. Because coronavirus, of course, is spread mostly by droplets in the air, right? And so if you wear a mask and other people wear a mask and you do social distancing, you cut down transmission by like over 99%, which is pretty good, I would say. And really the point of wearing a mask, so that you can safely have these transactions with essential workers. But no, apparently that's asking way too much for this dude, right? And this isn't the only time stuff like this has happened. No, there's been a rash of violence against essential workers simply trying to enforce company policy. For example, in Stillwater, Oklahoma, requiring the use of face masks in stores and restaurants. So originally, right, in this town, they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to require face masks. CDC guidelines are this. We're going to urge everyone, we're going to mandate everyone to do this in order to curb the transmission of coronavirus. Apparently, just hours after that was passed on May 1st, it had to be amended because of massive threats of violence. In the short time, this is according to Stillwater City Manager Norman McNichol, quote, in the short time beginning on May 1st, 2020, that face coverings have been required for entry into stores and restaurants, store employees have been threatened with physical violence and showered in verbal abuse. In addition, there's been one threat of violence using a firearm. This occurred in 3 short hours and in the face of clear medical evidence that face coverings help contain the spread of COVID-19. These people are throwing a literal fit and threatening other people because they don't want to wear a mask. And due to the threat, and apparently this intimidation, that's what it is. This is terroristic intimidation, right? It got this city council to go and amend this to say, oh, no, it's not a requirement. No, it's a suggestion. You don't have to wear them. You don't have to wear them. That emergency order was amended to encourage rather than require face coverings in the city of 50,000 people. In Michigan, a security guard was shot to death because they had the temerity to ask someone to wear a mask and did not allow them in the store. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. So here's the thing. You have people out here that are saying, yeah, you understand, freedom. I want the government to come tell me to wear a mask. No, that's no, it should be my choice. Freedom is the right decision. Yeah, freedom. Look, here's the thing about that. The same stores that they're trying to enter have their own rules, right? If you believe corporations in the market should be able, as a lot of conservatives do, right? The free markets, the companies make those rules, right? We don't need the government to make those rules. Well, in this case, a lot of stores do have these rules where you should wear masks, right? And I don't know if this gas station was only doing so because of the order or that they actually do care about their employees, because some of them do, right? So some places are like, yeah, we know it's a suggestion, but we're still going to require our employees to wear, masks, and we're going to require our guests that come in to wear masks to really limit the spread of COVID, to make it a safer workplace, right? These same people don't, seem to have a problem with no shirt, no shoes, no service. So, I mean, where's the difference, right? Isn't that a violation of my liberty? If I want to go into the local store barefoot and walk around, I should be able to do that. It's my freedom. How dare you tell me as a company not to do that? How dare you? I thought this was America. I thought we had freedom. Oh, it's fine when corporations do it themselves, but not when government decides to do what it's supposed to do. Isn't government supposed to ensure the safety of all Americans? Isn't that what they're literally supposed to do? Apparently not. Apparently they're not supposed to do anything but field the military and ensure that women don't get abortions. I don't know. It's Come on, dude. I mean, there are people, and this is why, right? There are people out there that literally don't believe that this is true. They think it's some sort of weird hoax in order to get people to, get vaccinated and microchipped by Bill Gates. Don't even come at me with that garbage. Look, I know I'm no fan of Bill Gates, right? And it sucks that I have to qualify that. But like literally, this is not a conspiracy. It's insane that I even have to talk about this and to try to say, well, it's not some conspiracy to try to control your life. No. The government already controls your life. They do it through the corporations. And actually, reality, the corporations control your life and they use the government to do it. So it's kind of the other way around. And so the corporations, they run everything. And it's all based on greed. It's all based on money. And so we're already at the mercy of giant bureaucracy. It's corporate bureaucracy. And it's all, again, based on how, quote unquote, productive you are as a citizen, right? And that's not a conspiracy. It's fact. We have absolutely no say when it comes to, very little say when it comes to policy. The only time that we get any sort of policy prescription that, that helps us is if it also helps the wealthy. As if it also helps the corporations. And so, look, again, there are people out here that don't believe that COVID is a hoax, getting back to that, right? And they think the numbers are inflated, that it's not really that big of a deal, man. Well, there's no evidence of that. I mean, there's no evidence that the numbers are overblown. Okay. In reality, we don't know exactly when COVID-19 came to America. We don't know exactly how many deaths were counted before as something else when it really was COVID-19. We have likely undercounted the death toll, which stands right now at over 83,000 Americans, and is likely to top 100,000 within the coming months as states are forced to reopen, because the federal government's not going to help the states anymore. No, Mitch McConnell put that off the table. He said that there's no way in hell we're going to fund those states. So that is, of course, forcing them to reopen. When you force them to reopen, of course, and you allow businesses or force businesses to reopen, even if the business owners don't want to. And I understand there are business owners that really do want to. And then there are some that don't unless it's safe. Well, they're forced to reopen. They don't get government help, and their workers don't get unemployment anymore. So, I mean, all of this is to try to get people off government assistance in order to help the wealthy stock portfolios. And that's what this is about. This is about wealthy people and corporations making more profit. They don't care about human lives. They don't care about people. And these people that are doing this violence, that are going out and protesting, a lot of them have unfortunately drank the right-wing Kool-Aid. I mean, that's what's happened. They think, oh no, my worth is only on how much I can consume and create for the corporations. It's crazy. It's crazy. Look, when the country reopens, it's going to be a bloodbath. We know this. We've seen in states that have already started to open gigantic increases in the number of COVID infections. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to be a bloodbath. But unfortunately, as we've seen from some people, their personal convenience, being able to get a freaking haircut, is worth more than the lives of their countrymen and their own families. Sad. Okay. Moving on here. Let's go to something not COVID related. Republican Senator Richard Burr is now under investigation for some very shady stock trades made ahead of the coronavirus market crash, using information that may have not been public. So now Burr, who just recently stepped down, that's breaking news, from the Intelligence Committee. He was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, but has stepped down from that role, was recently forced to turn over his phone to FBI agents after they served a search warrant on him at his Washington home. Separate law enforcement official told the LA Times that the Federal Bureau of Investigation also served a warrant recently to iPhone maker Apple in order to get information from Burr's iCloud account. So they're looking for the documents. Now, his phone has been seized, and they're looking through that information to see if there's anything that's related to any sort of insider trading. So now this is resulting in, of course, or it's a result of reports coming out where Burr and his wife sold between $600,000 to $1.7 million in stocks over 30 transactions from late January through mid-February, before the stock market plunged and his warnings about the pandemic grew more severe. Several of the stocks sold were in companies that own hotels, an industry that has been decimated, of course, by the current economic crisis. The bulk of Burr's stock sales took place on February 13th, just before he made a speech predicting extreme measures would have to be taken to check the spread of the virus, including closing of public schools and cutting company travel, according to audio obtained by NPR. A week earlier, on February 7th, Burr co-authored an opinion piece with Lamar Alexander, who now is in self-quarantine, that painted a little bit more of a rosy picture. If we can go back to that. He said, quote, "Thankfully, the United States is better prepared than ever to face the emerging public health threats like the coronavirus, in large part due to the work of the Senate Health Committee, Congress, and the Trump administration." Yeah. Over 83,000 deaths later. Oops. Of course, the news quickly blew up on social media. You have a lot of fun comments that weighed in on this, and not only on Richard Burr, but also on Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler, who also made a few shady trades. You have Kasim Rashid for Congress saying, breaking, FBI serves warrant on Senator Richard Burr and seizes his cell phone, and then adds my GOP opponent, Rob Whitman, also bought pharma stock in a potential COVID-19 treatment after learning about pandemic. Then told us the virus is not spreading. Damn. Stephanie Rule points out legal bills will grow larger than those market gains pretty soon. Well, I mean, to be fair, the market is doing a little bit better. As 3 million more people file for unemployment, getting the total of around 33 million people that are now out of work as a result, of course, the closures and the economic downturn. Joe Politics says, lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. Oh, I love it. Another one said, maybe if somebody added gate and tweeted about it, the real crime would get as much attention as the fake one the president keeps talking about, or Obama, what is it, Obamagate? Something going on there with that. Conservatives seem up in arms about it. I think the real Obamagate was him wearing a tan freaking suit. When, of course, in reality, the real problems with the Obama administration, as I've explained before, are actually substantive. The fact that he had increased the drone war, drone strikes, signature strikes, had a kill list. He didn't go after the Bush administration because we only looked forward, not backwards. I mean, you've heard all these from me before. If you're familiar with the show, I do not have a lot of love for President Obama because of some of the stuff that he did. Look, under his administration, most of the gains made after the Great Recession went to the top 1%. And so, yes, economic inequality increased massively under the Obama administration. And so those are things that we shouldn't ignore. But no, Republicans, they only focus on things like the tan suit. It's ridiculous. All right, more. Ben Krause points out, if a black man can be shot for jogging, reference to Ahmaud Arbery, we could imprison a white congressman for stealing millions. Yeah, I think for some reason, probably won't happen. We almost never see people that in power go to prison for their crimes. Almost never. Very, very rarely. And the ones that do are guilty of the one crime that is, that is the worst of them all, according to the club. Stealing from other members of the club. That's what that is. All right, more. Somebody points out that I bet Senator Loeffler is feeling kind of nervous right now. Kelly Loeffler. In fact, another one says, knock, knock, time for Kelly Loeffler. Hashtag no one is above the law. And another says, Kelly Loeffler is just lounging around the money bin in her home. The FBI is looking for something else to do tonight. Now, those two, they're not the only people that have made questionable trades. You have Representative Susan Davis, who unloaded thousands of dollars in stock in Alaska Air and Royal Caribbean, two industries that, of course, were massively hit by coronavirus. A senior aide to Senator Mitch McConnell made a mid-January purchase in Moderna. That's a biotech company that had 4 days earlier, announced it would begin developing a coronavirus vaccine. But that's kind of interesting right now. There's a lot of resources and money to be had in a new vaccine. You also have an aide to Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who serves on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, selling off stock in companies including Delta, and later bought stock in Clorox, which makes bleach and sanitary wipes. You also have Senator Dianne Feinstein, James Inhofe, Senator David Perdue, also selling stock in late January and early February as the Senate was ramping up their coronavirus briefings that, of course, were at the time classified. So FBI got a lot of people to look into now. I mean, it is illegal for lawmakers and aides to trade stocks based on having private information, but they are allowed to buy and sell shares based on public information, as now Richard Burr says, well, everything that I did was based on public information. I was just watching the news. And I made some, very prescient stock trades based on the news, even though just recently before that, I was telling everybody that it was going to be okay and that we had it all handled and that everything was going to be fine. Yeah, of course. Now, look, I think that we should ban all stock trades for people who are serving in office. If you want to serve as a public representative, you should not be allowed to trade stock. You should not be allowed to own stock, trade stock, or have a stock portfolio. That's it. No, end of this. You're done. You know why? Your job is to serve us, not your own financial interests. I don't care if you've never done insider trading. You would never do insider trading. You do everything above the book. You do everything above board, by the book. You follow all the rules. It doesn't matter. You should not be allowed to own stock. You should not. We're done with this. We're done. You're in a job, again, to serve us, not your financial interests, or not your financial interests. You are not there to get rich. You want to trade, you go to work on Wall Street. That's it. It's more lucrative anyway. Oh, but of course they want to first work in the government in order to deregulate Wall Street. So then when they leave government to go to Wall Street, they can get rich because they just made it easier for themselves to get rich and made a lot of friends in Wall Street. So that's how that works. This is the revolving door in politics. No. You want to trade, you cannot be a member of government. You cannot have stocks. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing. I mean, look, you think that I'm being too restrictive? No, not at all. I voted for you to do your job in office. We pay you. We pay your salaries to do your job. Once you're out of office, you can do all the trading you like, but your number one priority is to serve your constituents. This is a job We're your boss. It's about time politicians start acting like our employees and not the other way around. If they do, and by the way, if they do something that we don't like, then it's time to fire them. Fire them, all of them. And if they do stuff that we don't like, and they do stuff that's illegal, prison. I'm done playing these games with these ridiculous politicians. It's about time our politicians start to fear the people because we put them in office to do a job. And guess what? We should be able to easily take you out of office if you don't serve us. It's about time they be reminded who they actually work for. All right. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We got more. We got government spying on your browser history. I'm going to tell you who made that happen and what it's all about. And a little bit of anger towards Bernie Sanders. So I'm going to do that. Stay right here. Please like and share the stream. I thank some patrons, and of course, if there are any super chats, we'll read those too. So stay right here. Around the Nation. Be right back.
Mike Pounds.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so I want to thank some patrons before we get into it. Patreon.com/TYTNation. That's so you can support the show. Robert Agazino, thank you, Robert, for signing up. And then I want to thank Gabriel. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Gabriel. That's one way to support independent progressive media, keep us sustainable. We're at 382 patrons. I'd like to get to 400. So by the end of the month, so we can be sustainable. All right. And I think in reality, sustainability means growing the patron base quite a bit more so that we no longer have to rely on advertising, which is great. Would be fantastic. Another way to help, of course, is go to our Teespring store. So we've got some stuff, and I would love to get some suggestions for designs. I am not a graphic artist, but I will do my best in order to try to figure out something, that would that you would like to wear. Some TYT Nation around the nation swag. Okay, anyway, channel memberships. I want to thank Ray Bees and Toy Berryful for signing up. It's, of course, you can sign up by hitting the join button below in order to become a channel member and support the show. All right. Anyway, there's a little bit of a fun story that I just wanted to mention. So right now there's some massive protests going on in Michigan. Unfortunately for them, these protests no longer have the backing of Republican senators or giant groups. And so they're starting to fight amongst each other. In fact, earlier today, there was a fight that happened over a doll with a noose around its neck. That's really kind of strange. Apparently, a fight broke out between the protesters. Yes, these are the the anti-stay-at-home protesters. They're literally fighting each other. And according to J. Scott Park, an MLive photographer, he witnessed this fight break out. There was a person apparently carrying a garbage can with a sign, an axe, and an American flag. And attached to the flag was a doll with brown hair that was hanging from a noose. This is a very strange story. All right. Very, very strange. One of the protesters tried to take the doll off the flag, and they got into a fight. The man ran from the fight right on the Capitol lawn and was surrounded by Capitol Police, the Michigan State Police. That's crazy. What is going on with these protests? So, look, as I mentioned before, there were a lot of conservative groups that were behind these anti-stay-at-home protests. Now that I think the message has been received, and now, McConnell is saying no more aid to the states. Trump is saying no more aid to the states. We're not going to do coronavirus phase 4, which is going to force the states to open up. Mission complete. Like, mission accomplished. Like, we did what we're going to do. We stirred up sentiment to try to manufacture consent to get these states to open up because our stock portfolios are doing terrible. Now, the stock market is stabilized, it's doing better, even with 30 million people out of work. And so, yeah, we're just going to open up. We don't care if you die or your families, you're expendable to capitalism. Basically. And so it is fun to see these, at least it's fun to watch these groups go at each other. All right. Anyway. Moving on. Let's go to some disastrous legislation coming out of Congress instead of helping the American people, which they could be doing. Now, if you're one of the people that were concerned about the erosion of your civil liberties during the coronavirus pandemic, well, congratulations. At least in one part, you're right. And no, it's not about wearing a mask in public. It's actually about what you use to browse the internet and your entire browser history. There's new proposed amendment to the Patriot Act put forward by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell that would greatly expand Attorney General William Barr's surveillance powers. Now, McConnell's amendment would explicitly permit the FBI to collect records of America's internet search and browsing histories without a warrant. So this is a warrantless search of whatever you search on the internet. Now, here's the weird thing, right? So a lot of people, aren't worried about this. Hey, we got nothing to fear. Okay, but if you're a whistleblower, or if you're somebody the government doesn't like, that could get a little dicey. Now, this would also mandate that Attorney General William Barr and his successors, Justice Department, will conduct an annual review of the FBI's submissions into the FISA court. Now, Barr would be permitted to review for, quote, accuracy and completeness evidence presented to the FISA court by the FBI regarding potential surveillance targets. So you're giving William Barr the power to find potential surveillance targets. So this does a couple of things, right? For one, it allows William Barr, who is not an objective, right? So he's not at all interested in the law. He's interested in being Trump's flunky. Now, if you have another, for example, a Democratic president that installs a political loyalist like William Barr, but only for Democrats, well, then they can target conservatives they don't like. Right now, they can target liberals or progressives that they don't like, or whistleblowers or whatever. So this is disastrous. This is a very large amount of power going into the Department of Justice. So that's bad. Senator Ron Wyden. Ron Wyden is one of the best congressmen when it comes to issues of privacy. And so he's been sounding the alarm. In fact, he said under the McConnell Amendment, Barr gets to look through the web browsing history of any American, including journalists, politicians, and political rivals. It's very important. Without a warrant, just by saying that it's relevant to an investigation. He also said that typical Americans may think to themselves, I've got nothing to worry about. I've done nothing wrong. The government has no reason to suspect me of anything, said the senator. But unfortunately, the question is whether or not you did anything. The question is whether a government agent believes they have the right to look at your web searches. It is open season on anybody's most personal information. So, hey, man, look, if you have some shady web history, watch out. Maybe it's time to go and invest in a VPN or something. And yes, this could target independent media as well, especially left-wing independent media. And so nobody's safe under this. If you're interested in giving out facts, they can definitely use this against you. So now, Wyden continues by saying, quote, if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. I'm fighting it every step of the way. And he actually is. He tried to pass an amendment. Now, he teamed up with the Republican Senator Steve Daines of Montana and tried to put an amendment forward, which would have required the Justice Department to show probable cause before collecting data under the Patriot Act. That amendment failed. The very little bit of oversight that this would have given failed by one vote. One vote. Now, 10 Democrats joined Republicans in defeating this amendment by Wyden, and this, of course, to stop warrantless surveillance of web browser history are Tom Carper, Senator Casey, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Senator Maggie Hassan, Senator Doug Jones, Tim Kaine, Joe Manchin, Jeanne Shaheen, Mark Warner, and Sheldon Whitehouse. Now, again, those are the Democrats that joined with the Republicans in saying, yes, we can look through your browser history. Come on. Now, there is one senator that could have made the difference. You know who that was? Senator Bernie Sanders. Where was Bernie? How did he vote? Well, he didn't. Bernie wasn't there. He was absent. He didn't show up. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. I mean, now the Department of Justice, if no amendments are added, right? So if the McConnell Amendment actually doesn't get added, which would be a good thing, right? Even though the Patriot Act is a disaster, this won't have to go through the House. This could be signed by the president. So now, if this amendment passes, it would have to go back to the House and could be likely approved by corporate Democrats, as they already in the Senate have signed on to it. Nancy Pelosi has no problem giving Trump more spying powers. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So now it's very likely that if this does pass and get signed by the president, who will, of course, probably enthusiastically sign it as it gives his flunky more power, then the Department of Justice, William Barr, is going to have much more power. Much more power. I mean, and it gets worse, by the way. I was just talking about the internet browsing part. Now, this is one thing that the Republicans really love about this bill, and that under McConnell's proposal, the FISA court and its amicus, who's an attorney appointed to challenge the government's submissions for potential surveillance, would be limited in their ability to question the FBI, but only in cases of politicians. So now that kind of undoes a protection, as we're all supposed to have an amicus. If the FBI, if the government wants to look into us, if the government wants to do surveillance on us, then we should have an amicus. We should have them acting on our behalf saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't think that that's right, that you could spy on this person. They shifted that over to protecting politicians. McConnell, by the way, would limit the involvement of an amicus only when the FBI submits an application to target a campaign for federal office or an application that targets a United States person when the application relies for its criminal predicate on only the provisions of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So understand, this is there to protect politicians, but not regular people from being surveilled, from being spied on. I mean, come on. It's been pointed out, too, that this amendment's provision allowing William Barr or any future attorney general to review the evidence presented to the FISA court is likely a response to the FBI's reasoning for conducting surveillance on Trump's campaign aide Carter Page. They're very, very mad about that. Very mad about that. So, look, on the one hand, you have an amicus that can protect political candidates, right? And stop them from being spied on. But no protections for journalists, whistleblowers, or everyday citizens. Protect the politicians, not the people, because of course. That's why a lot of these Democrats are in favor of this. Put together, according to Demand Justice, these two provisions are two of the most cynical attempts to undermine surveillance reform. McConnell, according to that group, is literally trying to take a privacy safeguard designed for the press and religious groups and instead give it only to politicians and people suspected of being foreign agents. He's also trying to sneak warrantless surveillance of internet and his search histories into an amendment that claims to prohibit it. This is according to Sean Vitka talking to the Daily Beast. These amendments, they say, would pretty much guarantee the ability of an incumbent administration to spy on its political opponents without consequences, according to Charles Pierce at Esquire. So this is disastrous. Now, would Trump really do this? Of course he would. There's no question. Of course he'd do surveillance on journalists and whistleblowers who are not friendly to him. Of course he would. And would he protect politicians that have swore fealty to him? Of course he would. This is fascism 101. This is why from day one, I was supportive of getting rid of the entire Patriot Act. Get rid of it. It's gone. Now, here's the thing. I'm disappointed in Bernie Sanders for not being there. He didn't show up. Now, look, he didn't vote against a Wyden amendment. That could have stopped McConnell. It's true. I mean, that would have been worse had he actually voted the wrong way. But he wasn't there, and I'm kind of curious as to why. Because, again, this could have been stopped by his vote, by the one vote. So I think it's kind of a failure on his part, at least to be there for a very, very important vote. I don't know what else he had going on. I don't know. And so, look, if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, I can understand that. But I'm deeply disappointed. As somebody who, really likes Bernie Sanders and somebody who supports him and, more than happy to vote for him, I just think that I think he should have been there for this. And I don't know why he wasn't. And maybe I'll find out that he's had a good reason, but it has to be a pretty damn good reason, I think. Now, for all the Democrats, by the way, you can't go and claim that Trump is a Russian asset and that he's the most dangerous president in history and then vote with him to allow him to get more power. I mean, that's insane. Insane. Unfortunately, that's what they've been doing. The resistance, so-called resistance, it's all theater. No. The threat is the only thing that's real, the threat of Trump, and they seem to not actually care about that. Disgusting. All right. Moving on. Presumptive nominee Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders are now coming together for a joint unity task force. So now they say that it's going to be used to shape the Democratic Party policy and the party's agenda for 2020 and beyond. So before we get into what I think about this, let me tell you about who's going to be in these task forces, right? So Bernie Sanders has picked some pretty good people. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You have Pramila Jayapal. Cortez, of course, will be on the environmental task force. You got Pramila Jayapal. You got Varshini Prakash, who's the co-founder of Sunrise Movement. So that's a really good pick. You also have for economics, Stephanie Kelton. So now she is known for her work on MMT. For healthcare, you've got Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed. You got a lot of great picks, right, for these task forces, right? Now, Biden has his own picks. You're not going to be surprised. Their establishment. You have John Kerry. You have Sonal Shah, policy director for Pete Buttigieg. Then in his presidential campaign, you have, of course, Randy Weingarten, Christopher Alex, who's a Biden campaign advisor. And so, look, you've got their respective picks. Now, the Biden campaign said in a statement that the goal of this is to put together the most successful possible agenda for Democrats in 2020. Well, I don't know about that. Now, he also said that he wants to ensure the U.S. doesn't, quote, reset the clock back to a time before Donald Trump. Now, that's interesting because that's what Biden's entire campaign was about originally. So now the question is, did he actually learn from coronavirus, right, and the popularity of Bernie Sanders' campaign, him getting the second most amount of delegates in the race, and winning some very important states at the beginning, while Biden and the rest of the establishment had floundered originally before Bloody Monday, which is when they all got together to back Joe Biden after South Carolina, and Jim Clyburn's endorsement. And so, I don't know. Did he learn? I don't know, man. I can't tell you that. But his rhetoric is starting to be a bit better, but that's all it is. It's just words without actions. And to be fair, he's not president yet, so he can't really do any of this stuff. But I don't know. I don't really have a lot of trust in that. But now, okay, to continue with this statement, he says, the United Party is key to defeating Donald Trump this November and moving our country forward through an unprecedented crisis. As we work towards our shared goals, it's especially critical that we not lose sight of the pressing issues facing Americans. So now there's 33 million people that are out of work, right? So we need a UBI for this crisis. And of course, until the basic economy goes back to being what it was before coronavirus hits, so it could be years that we need to recover, that we need to continue to pay Americans, either through unemployment benefits or the Heroes Fund, for example, that gets people, back on the payroll for their jobs, but has the government supplement them to pay. That's Pramila Jayapal's plan, of course, that unfortunately did not get put into the latest Democratic bill for coronavirus relief. So now there's other things. There's, of course, 27 million Americans that have lost their health care. They've lost their health insurance because they've lost their jobs. And so, I mean, those are just some of the crises facing Americans. You also have the global crisis, not just coronavirus, but you have the climate change. So we need a Green New Deal. We need something massive. And so, look, a lot of these people, right? These problems need to be addressed, and there are a lot of good people here that have great plans on this. Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed, he's a huge proponent of single payer healthcare, right? Medicare for all. That's what he's been calling for. He ran for governor of Michigan. I supported him, voted him. I'd vote for him again, right? If I could. I really admire and respect the work. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Green New Deal, right? She's been pushing that. And so I respect a lot of these people, and these are the people that Bernie Sanders picked to be in the task force. And I don't want to undermine their work, and I don't want to disrespect their work or dismiss it. But my problem here is that I think this is Unity Reform Commission 2.0. I mean, back in 2016, there's so many great progressives. Namiki Konst, wonderful progressive. I consider her like a friend of the show, right? They tried so hard to fundamentally change the DNC, right? To be more representative of progressive priorities. They worked so hard only for the DNC and the establishment to shoot down basically every one of their proposals. Gone. So I don't want to minimize the work that they put into this, but the fact is that there was so much pushback in the establishment that none of this, basically none of the reforms got passed. So what was the point? Again, AOC, Jayapal, Syed, I love these guys. I want them to be successful, and I appreciate their work. And I do believe they joined because they think that they can make a difference. And maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this time they'll make a difference. Maybe they'll push Biden to the left. I don't know. I don't believe it though. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't see Biden's campaign moving a whole lot earnestly. I mean, sure, again, out there he's starting to sound a little bit more like Bernie, calling for some student loan debt cancellation and a $15 minimum wage. He's gone basically to Elizabeth Warren's plan on student loan debt cancellation, which of course is full of means testing and things like that. And he says, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, now we're totally going to get people under 45 by canceling a small part of their student loan debt and means testing the crap out of it." I mean, that's what they do, right? But here's the thing: he's also quote unquote moved forward or progressed, right, on policy that is actually less progressive than what Hillary Clinton was offering back in 2016. Hillary Clinton wanted to lower the Medicare age to 55. Biden's big concession, lowering it to 60. Why don't we lower it to 0? Medicare for all now. I mean, that would make sense. But of course, we don't do that in this country. All right. Now, the task force will meet ahead of the DNC in August and present policy recommendations to both Biden and the DNC's platform committee. So now, again, those recommendations, I see them either being rejected or watered down, and I'm just keeping it real here, right? And by the way, even if the Biden campaign agrees with it, do you really trust him to follow through? I mean, if he wins, right? And that's kind of an if, as polling has him down in 15 states, some of which are key states for him to win. He's now being beaten by Trump. Disastrous, right? But even if he does win, do you really trust him to fight for those policies, considering how he has a history of lying greatly. I mean, lying when it doesn't really make sense to lie. I mean, he lied about visiting Mandela in jail in South Africa. He was nowhere near trying to visit Mandela in jail. And of course, if he was, he wouldn't be arrested. A complete flat out fabrication. Lying about going to HBCUs. And of course, constantly taking conservative positions. I mean, he governed. Look, the thing about Joe Biden is that he has always governed in the center, right? Wherever the center is, even if it's massively right wing, he still tries to get into the center of it. He is a true centrist, right? And that's not a good thing because he doesn't stake out a real position. Now, that does mean that he is capable of, for example, being on the right side of history at some point, because that happens to be where the quote unquote center is, right? But it's got to be like poll tested, and it's got to be like, oh, Windsock, here's what's not exactly populist, because we're going to stay away from populism, but it has to be acceptable within my group, within my sphere of influence, right? My donors have to be okay with this. My donors are fine with gay marriage, so I of course, I went progressive with gay marriage, even though Barack Obama wasn't openly with it. So I let that slip, right? And so I'll be on the right side. I'll support unions because guess what? We get a lot of donations from unions. So I'm going to, be in favor of that. So occasionally he lands himself on the right side of history. So would that happen now that coronavirus has completely changed the political calculation? I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, a majority of Democrats, the massive majority of over 80%, support Medicare for all, single-payer healthcare system, even if it gets rid of private insurance, which is what a Medicare for all single-payer system would actually do. So knowing that the base is massively in favor of it and that they're calling for massive change because we're in the middle of this pandemic, would that be enough to actually, hit Joe Biden's triangulation? Because that's what it is, right? He is the classic triangulation candidate. Would that be enough to get him on board? We don't know. We don't trust. And that is the big problem. And that's actually the huge problem with people under 45. Because we have independent media and we get told the truth about Joe Biden and where he stands on issues and what his past is. Whereas you don't see that on MSNBC. On MSNBC, CNN, they're like, oh, Joe Biden is electable. He's one of he's a longstanding congressman, and look at that, vice president. But they don't talk about the stuff that he did in the past. The fact that he's ran several campaigns for president and had to had to quit those campaigns because of scandal. Things like where he had plagiarized speeches and other people's policies and incorporated it into his own. I mean, there's no trust here. There's no trust here. And so do I believe that these task forces are genuinely going to move him when I don't know who Joe Biden is? I don't know who he is. I don't know where he stands. All I know is what he's done and how he's governed. And that is not encouraging. And the lies that he was caught up in, not encouraging at all. And I'm sorry, but I'm totally cynical about this. And I think I'm right to be cynical. It doesn't mean I don't want to defeat Trump. I want to defeat Trump badly. I mean, this administration is an absolute disaster. And people are dying. 83,000 people have died as a result of coronavirus, thanks to the administration's feckless incompetence. So do I want Donald Trump? Of course not. Of course not. Now, I'm also not saying that I wouldn't vote for Biden, but I'm also saying that right now he's got to earn my vote. And I don't know how he's going to do that if I don't trust him. I'm in this conundrum where I can't trust the guy. And so anything that he says, I'm going to view with suspicion. So I don't know, man. Now, that said, I'm not going to shame you for voting for him. I'm not going to shame you for staying home, voting third party. I'm not going to do that. We're done with that. We're done with that. Okay. We tried that in 2016. Did that work? No. Of course not. Of course not. So, like, understand where I'm at. It's a very difficult position to be in. Do I think these unity, task forces are going to accomplish anything? Probably not. Probably nothing concrete. And that sucks because I respect so many of the people who are serving on that. You know? So, like, I don't know. Now, look, one more thing here, and this is according to Vox. They said the task force was a large part of why Bernie Sanders formally endorsed Biden. So understand that, like, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have this romance, right? They like each other. They respect each other. That's kind of different than the dynamic that happened in 2016, whereas Hillary Clinton despised Bernie Sanders for getting in the way of her coronation. So understand that maybe that I'm really trying. I'm trying hard, right? And maybe I shouldn't try that hard, because if you have to stretch that hard to try to find some sort of light, then maybe you shouldn't be trying. Okay. And that's honestly the truth of it. But, like, they do have a respect for each other. That's why he believes Joe Biden, even though we don't. We don't have that relationship with Joe Biden. We don't know him, right? Bernie Sanders does. Or maybe he thinks he does, and he thinks, well, I can at least trust Joe Biden on this one, that he's going to try to honor this. And who knows? Maybe he will, right? But I just don't believe it. I just don't trust it. And I don't trust him. Now, that said, Bernie Sanders said that he wanted to guarantee his progressive vision would have a tangible impact on policy in a Biden administration. Now, he literally has everything to lose, right? He could very much lose this race, as I mentioned before. So far, on rhetoric, he's holding up his end of the bargain. You've heard him recently, right? Where he's talking about, $15 minimum wage or living wage, and we're going to do these more progressive policy proposals, and we're going to have the most progressive administration that we've ever had. Which, of course, not nearly progressive as Bernie Sanders would be. But the reason that he's doing this, at least he's cognizant enough to understand that he needs progressive voters. But he's also going to do it in a way that doesn't bother his donors. And that's what this is, right? Again, Hillary Clinton expected a coronation, got her ass handed to her in the swing states. Biden's campaign's not that stupid. They know that he needs progressives to win. They know they need people under 45. Now, the question is, what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do to get that? And this, apparently they're going to try this unity commission, right? Or this unity task force, or these task forces. That's their solution to this. I think that this is Biden going through a song and dance, though. I think this is kabuki theater. I don't think it's going to really, get a lot of voters under 45. It might fool some people, but I'm incredibly skeptical. Just incredibly skeptical. So I understand. But look, as far as what we should do, progressives, I don't have an answer. We're stuck with the worst possible choices here. We have Tara Reade's allegations that are, massively problematic. But at the same time, you have Trump, who's arguably worse. And so you've got two people with massive problems, and we're stuck in 2016 all over again. What we need to do is a progressive movement is we need to figure out a new plan. Right now, electoral politics and getting just a seat at the table is not enough. We had a seat at the table in 2016. See how that worked out, right? And so I don't know. We need a way to advance our policies without just working inside the system. As electoral politics is very, very difficult to get people to give up power You have to take it. You have to literally take it from them. And so working with them in the system is not going to be, it's definitely not the end all be all, right? What we need to do is we need to work outside the system as well. And that takes organization. Now, right now we can't do anything coronavirus, right? But once it's safe to go out, general strikes. We need general strikes. We need to take to the streets. That's, of course, assuming Trump hasn't won and completely stripped out all of our rights to be able to do that. I don't know, but we need outside pressure. Again, I respect everybody on these task forces. I hope they do good. I know they're fighting hard to try to introduce progressive change from within the system, but we need something that's outside of electoral politics too. And that's going to take, again, massive mobilization and massive organization of progressives, of people who really want meaningful change. We've got to take to the streets when it's safe to do so, and show, the establishment that we do have power and that we will show up, not just for voting, but to hold you accountable. All right. That's all I got time for today, you guys. Thank you. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe. If you like the content, we've got shows every day. Also, we've got a show on Saturday as well. So, all right, guys. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening and stay safe.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.